That with a cold. So both of them are restricting my breathing here. So if I pass out, just break into song. Okay. I've titled this Reflecting God. We've been listening over the past several weeks, presentations from the heart, on living our lives for God, that our words, actions, and dress match our walk, having faith, courage, and the ability to forgive, reaching the lost and the children, stepping up and filling the gaps of spiritual leaders and warriors who are now gone, building the bodily temple that is fitting for God to live in, cleaning out what does not belong in our lives, waiting on God, and strengthening our walk through prayer, His word, and His Spirit, while removing unnecessary extras.
Yeah.
Right? We have heard we can accomplish these things through fellowship, ministry, perseverance, faith, hope, kindness, love, compassion, gentleness, understanding, joy, meekness, and having knowledge of the word and wisdom in its presentation, so that we may speak with confidence. But how do we get to that point? Right. What is it that we need to do that brings us to the place in God where we are reflecting God in every aspect of our lives?
Yeah.
Right. This is my struggle in God's message. And I ask that God, let it be His will and His words and His message that we hear tonight. I ask it to take root in our hearts and let it grow deep and strong. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines submission as the state of being obedient, the act of accepting the authority or control of someone else. There are many examples of submission and obedience to God throughout the Bible, but I was drawn to focus on the following 4 examples in the Old Testament. Genesis 6:13 through the first part 15. And God said to Noah, "The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make it of." And God went on to give Noah very specific instructions on the building of this ark. Right. And in Genesis 6:22, thus did Noah, right, according to all that God commanded him, so did he. That's right. After the ark had been completed, God tells Noah to bring his family into the ark and gives Noah explicit instructions for the loading of 2 of every kind of all of God's creatures by 7. And in Genesis 7:5, it says, "And Noah did according unto all that the Lord commanded him." There was no ands, there was no ifs, no buts.
Yes.
God spoke, Noah listened and obeyed. That's right. Noah submitted to God's will.
Yes.
Next, we're going to move on to Exodus 3:9-10, where God commissions Moses. And God says to Moses, starting in verse 9, "Now therefore behold the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me. And I have also seen the oppression where the Egyptians oppress them. Come now therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." And Moses responds. Moses says unto God, "Who am I, that I should go unto Pharaoh, and I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt?" Right. God tells Moses that he will be with him and tells him to bring the people back to the mount to serve him. Moses asks God, "But who should I say sent me?" And God replies, "I am that I am. I am have sent me unto you." God tells Moses, "Gather the elders. Let them know that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob has sent them, and beseech them to go 3 days' journey into the wilderness to sacrifice to God." In Exodus 4:1, and Moses answered and said, "But behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice, for they will say, The Lord hath not appeared unto thee." God uses the rod of Moses to perform miracles that he will use as signs. And then in Exodus 4:10, and Moses said unto the Lord, "O my Lord, I am And the Lord said unto him, Who hath made man's mouth? Or who maketh the dumb or deaf or the seeing or the blind? Have now I, the Lord? Right. Now therefore go, and I will be with thy mouth, and teach thee what thou shalt say. In Exodus 4:12, Moses responds, and he said, O my Lord, send, I pray thee, by the hand of him who thou wilt send. In the New Living Translation, this reads, but Moses again pleads, Lord, please, send someone else. God is angered, and he tells Moses, take Aaron with him and speak the words that to Aaron that he has given him. God promises to be with him. So Moses does finally go. He submits to the Lord, and he goes out to do his will. Now we go to Jonah. Now the word of the Lord came unto Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, Arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry against it. Their wickedness has come up before me. And how does Jonah respond to this? But Jonah rose up to flee unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord, and went down to Joppa, and found his ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare thereof, and went down into it to go with him unto Tarshish from the presence of the Lord. Now God raises a big storm. The men are scared, and they find out that this storm is because of Jonah, and Jonah is running from the presence of the Lord. Right. So they cry unto the Lord, and they try to get to shore, and they can't. So Jonah basically tells them, the only way you're going to save yourselves is you've got to just throw me overboard. So they do. Right. And of course, this is where Jonah gets swallowed by a big eel. Was it a big eel? No, what was that? Do you remember what it was? Was it a shark? No? You don't remember what it was? A whale. A whale got him? Okay. And the Lord, and there he spent 3 days and nights in the belly of the fish. And he prayed unto God. And then God spake unto the fish, and it vomited Jonah upon the dry land. And then in 3:1-2, God commissions Jonah a second time. And the word of the Lord came unto Jonah the second time, saying, Arise, go unto Nineveh, that great city, and preach unto it the preaching that I bid thee. So Jonah rose and went unto Nineveh, according to the word of the Lord. Now Jonah does deliver God's message, and the people of Nineveh believed God, fasted, cried unto the Lord, and turned from their evil ways. God spares them, and Jonah not happy. And of course, this leads us into God's lesson for Jonah. My final example in the Old Testament, I pulled out of the New Living Translation. It's an insert, and it kind of got summarized what I wanted to bring up for Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar was one of the greatest conquerors in the history of the world. He dominated the people of many nations, including Judah. He possessed power, fame, wealth, and influence. At one point, he even considered himself a god. But like so many others, he lacked the one thing he needed the most, peace. His insecurities would not allow him to be at peace with himself, so how could he be at peace with others? He was unhappy with himself and hostile toward the people around him. Nebuchadnezzar never truly discovered the peace that could have been found had he recognized his powerlessness and surrendered his life to God. Yeah. Daniel and his friends are good examples of how success and peace could be found through complete dependence on God and surrender to his will. After Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walked out of the fiery furnace unscathed, Nebuchadnezzar realized that it had been thwarted by a higher power. Yeah. He also saw that the three friends, by turning their lives over to God, had far greater power at their disposal than even he had. Despite his recognition of God's powers, however, the king still remained proud. Nebuchadnezzar continued to brag about his greatness and claimed that he alone was responsible for the great city of Babylon. He refused to recognize that all power, even his power, was granted by God. So God judged Nebuchadnezzar's pride by afflicting him with madness, and the king was forced from his throne. After a time, Nebuchadnezzar turned to God and admitted his sin of pride, and God restored his sanity and rule. Nebuchadnezzar had been reminded once again that he was not ultimately in control of his world. Sadly, it seems that Nebuchadnezzar never truly understood the nature of submission to God. He saw God act in the lives of others, and even his own life. He clearly believed in God's presence and power, yet he could not seem to put his life into God's hands on a permanent basis. Although he may have experienced religious conviction, it seems that he never experienced spiritual conversion and lasting transformation. The last few weeks have been quite a roller coaster ride for me. When Brother Stewart first mentioned about speaking, I really didn't pay much attention to the topics because I had already had it in my mind that I wasn't going to speak. And God seemed to have other plans for me. And also Tony did too, because he put my name on the list and wouldn't listen to me when I told him I was going to do it. So I really tried to search the Bible for something. What am I going to talk about? And thinking, what did Brother Stewart say? What were the things he mentioned? And I think it was prayer, prayer, and all for the life of me, I couldn't remember any of them. I even came back to church a few times and asked different people. I just couldn't seem, they just wouldn't stick in my head. But submission kept coming out. And it's like, Lord, I know he didn't say submission. He would never ask me to preach on submission. This would not happen. But I tried holding something together. And I kept coming back to submission. And it's like, I can't speak of submission. You need to find somebody else. This is not me. I am so unworthy to speak on this. But God would not leave me alone. It was definitely something that he, for some reason, and I kept thinking back to the time when I spoke on prayer several years ago. And I had this desire in my heart to learn how to pray to God. And he drove me into that Bible. And I searched it and searched it. He kept showing me where it was, though, and I kept saying, no, that wasn't it, I knew that was. I kept trying to look someplace else, but eventually. But anyways, even after I had satisfaction and the thrill of finding what God was trying to show me, there still was that need. Not a want, because I didn't want to get up here. No one asked me. I wasn't on the list to speak. But I needed to speak. And in my heart, I felt like for some reason there was. God was trying to tell me that whatever it was that I had found, for some reason, and I feel in my heart there was somebody here that night that I spoke that needed to hear it. For whatever reason, for whatever God's plan was. I truly feel it in my heart that that's what it was. So I'm thinking to myself, God, I know you think that there's somebody out there that needs to hear this message, but I'm not the one to deliver this. You need to find somebody else. I can't do this. And I had some things going on, and I would come home, and I would, no, God, wasn't handling that well, and it's like, I can't do this. And one particular night I came home, and I was so angry and hurt. And I remember calling Tony, and I said, I think you know at that point the cheese slipped off the cracker. I think it was one of those psychotic movies. And I can't do this, Tony. You need to take my name off the list. I don't care. I'm not doing it. I'm not in the right place. I can't do this. And for a few days, I even walked away. And I didn't even open my Bible. I didn't work on anything anymore because I'd been working on it, writing scripture. And I was going in every direction, and nothing was coming together. I had pages of notes and pages of passages, and I would look at them, and they were going in so many different directions, and I would just throw them away, and I would start over. And so a few days, I didn't even look at anything. And I started missing some of my prayer time, and I started missing some services. And that particular night, I just kept thinking to God, it's like, how am I supposed to submit? How am I supposed to? I want to be obedient to your word. I know what it says, but I wanted. I was so angry. I just wanted to rip somebody's leg off and eat them with her. And I don't think that's what God had in mind. A few days, I don't know, a day or two, during the night, I had some time with God, and it was the most awesome thing when you get time with God.
Praise God.
And he brought me to this place with him that was so beautiful and peaceful. And I can't even explain it. Just Anthony, he said we could only bottle it. But totally. It was like I was almost one with him. I can't even, the joy that I felt inside of my heart. Yeah. It was so beautiful. And it was, it's hard to express. You're saying God spoke to me, and it's not like real words. But he was saying, this is submitting all to me. And when you submit to my word, then all that I am is reflected in you. And that little bit of moment, it just seems so clear, so clear. And then afterwards, the conviction. Oh, I felt worse than ever. It's like, wow. I mean, the conviction was so heavy. So heavy. And but I went back to the word, and I kept trying to put something together. I kept trying to put something together. It wasn't working. I just, Lord, I don't know if I can do this. And one day I was riding in the car, and I just said, God, I know that there's somebody that you want to hear this message. I know that there is. I know you've asked me to deliver, but there's going to be somebody, anybody in that church is more worthy than me. There's going to be somebody that can deliver this message. And God said to me, he said, the message is for you. And in every sense, the message was for me. So I leave you with this question. When the Lord calls you to do it, and when he places a name, a situation in your heart, what will your answer be? And while you think, I want you to turn to the New Testament, where I want to focus on an act of submission found in Matthew 26:42. Jesus prays in the garden of Gethsemane. And he went away again the second time and prayed, saying, "Oh, my Father, if this cup may not pass away from me, except I drink, thy will be done." This is the greatest act of submission found in the Bible, where God, manifested in the flesh, Jesus Christ our Lord, submits to his own plan. And but why? Why would he do this? Why does he expect us to submit all to him? Well, we can analyze it and try to come up with some fancy theories. But we can turn to John 3:16, which says, "For God so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." So when we call on God, when we submit and surrender to his will, to his word, to his perfect plan that he has for each one of us, all things are possible. We can move mountains. So once again I ask, when the Lord calls you to do work, when he places a name or situation on your heart, what will your answer be?